So whenever I brought up Young Justice to just about anyone, I would always kind of hear how people would say, oh, Young Justice fell off, it's not as good as it used to be, and that really surprised me given how good season 1 and season 2 was. Not only did I enjoy everyone not being carbon copies of the Justice League, but I also enjoyed the fact that everyone kind of had their own problems and situations to deal with. And I think season 1 did a really good job laying down this foundation and making that clear from the start. Because in season 1, Artemis, for example, she had a really messy family situation with her dad being Sportsmaster and her sister being a villain as well. Artemis comes from a family of villains, but she's a hero. So that's pretty interesting. Then we have Superboy, aka Connor. Now, Superboy was painfully aware of the fact that he could never do the things that Superman can do to a degree, and he had to face that reality every day. Like, Superboy can't fly, and he can't really do heat vision. The only way he could do all those things was through the use of shields, which was provided by Lex Luthor. But even that kind of came at a price because it just made him rage. Also in season 1, we had Miss Martian facing rejection due to being a white Martian on Green Mars and not knowing whether her true form will be accepted by her comrades. All of these problems I've enjoyed seeing everyone work through, and season 1 did a really good job of that. There was even a whole big plot twist where I suspected Artemis as a supposed traitor all along, but it was really Red Arrow, something I never saw coming. In the end, even he had to deal with something, knowing that Roy Harper, aka Red Arrow, was a clone and he was created by Cadmus. He was the mole and he was the traitor the whole time. I think one of the things I appreciated the most was I enjoyed the build up to the whole Savage and Chaos plotting thing. Like, they created tiny little distractions along the way and succeeded in temporarily controlling the Justice League, and it really didn't feel ass pulled. I actually really enjoyed the Young Justice group actually having moments to prove themselves, like towards the end when the Justice League was being controlled by Savage. I enjoyed Superman finally talking to Connor because Superman had been dodging Connor the whole season. Then we have season 2, which is far superior to season 1. In season 2, we had a lot of things happening, and season 2 happens 5 years later after season 1. Off rip, the whole Connor and Miss Martian thing not being together really threw me for a loop. And I mean, little did I know, like, the plot twist would only get crazier and crazier from there. But I will say I did love season 2 for a lot of things because we did get quite a few new characters. Like, we got the introduction of Wonder Girl, Batgirl, Beast Boy, Static, and so many others. And speaking of Static, I'm currently watching Static Shock on the side. And Young Justice and Static Shock, they have 2 different versions of how Static got his powers. I don't know which one I like more. In Static Shock, he got his powers from basically being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was an accident. Virgil was around the gas from the Big Bang, and the Big Bang was just basically this chemical explosion. Now in Young Justice, Virgil was kidnapped by the Reach and he was experimented on in order to see if this metagene of his could be triggered. And you know, if you remember, the Reach was kidnapping these runaway kids, and Static, aka Virgil, just happened to be one of them. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Another thing I enjoyed about Young Justice would have to be the whole Roy Harper thing. Like, Roy was super obsessed with finding the original Roy, and it was interesting because I'll be real, I really didn't think the original Roy was still out there. I don't think anyone did. But it was interesting to see both the clone and the original deal with their feelings. I think the clone Roy remained Red Arrow, and then the original Roy turned into Arsenal. And we can see that Arsenal had a lot of trauma that he needed to deal with. Then we had this whole situation with Aqualad and him seemingly switching sides. And I thought that was written pretty well because it got to a certain point where at first I was like, okay, what happened to make someone like Aqualad switch sides? But then it also got to another point where I didn't know where Aqualad stood because he was such a great actor, and I thought he actually took Artemis out. Like, this whole season just had me tense throughout the entirety of it because I was so nervous and I didn't really know what to expect. And then I found myself being even more nervous Like, especially when we learn the truth about Aqualad's mission. Not gonna lie, I was kinda worried at this point because Miss Martian obviously didn't know the truth and she was out for blood. I kinda held Nightwing at fault here because Miss Martian is not the one to keep secrets from. Not with her abilities. So that was kind of a slight oversight on his part. Not to mention, this mission could have went south if Simon got to probe Aqualad's mind like he wanted to. That would have destroyed the whole operation. But thankfully it didn't come to that, and I think Miss Martian, she kind of got a chance to reflect on her abilities, reflect on how her powers are being used, and even reflect on the reason why Connor broke up with her. Overall, I'd say season 2 was a great character development arc for Miss Martian. She's arguably my favorite character. And I gotta say, I severely underestimated Blue Beetle. Because to be honest, I thought he was pretty weak. But he's really a beast, and I love the whole situation where Jaime was trying to fight against his prophecy, yet ended up accidentally following it anyway. Long story short, I can go on and on about a whole bunch of things I enjoyed about season 1 as well as season 2. But I will say the one thing I probably didn't like in season 2 would have to be Wally passing on. Like, I get it, and I like it from a writing standpoint because it shows that there are consequences for the Young Justice group. But I don't like how Impulse basically got Wally's suit. Like, that didn't feel right to me, and that felt a little too quick. But besides that, seeing Tim and Cassie at the end, that was nice and unexpected. I kind of figured she'd go more for Superboy, but you know, Superboy and Wonder Girl would be an interesting ship. Like, that would be a power ship. Besides that, I think season 3 is going to jump off. It might be even better than season 2. We'll see, because it looked like Savage joined forces with Darkseid at the end. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, y'all let me know what y'all thought about everything. I enjoyed Young Justice a lot. I'm liking it a lot so far. But like I said, I've been hearing a lot of negative things about it. Y'all just let me know what y'all feel about it. As always, thank you for tuning in. Sierra Nova is out.